You all already met me earlier today, so I am going to let Benjamin introduce himself. He plays a very important role at this company.
Thank you very much. Benjamin Gleitzman. I'm the CTO and co-founder here at Replicant. My background is in artificial intelligence and machine learning, but I've also been an executive sponsor on some of our largest partnerships. So I've seen everything from a dream of a call flow that you might want to automate all the way through development, deployment, expansion, and on from there.
This presentation is called Anatomy of a Conversation. The goal here is to break down a little bit of our method when it comes to conversation design and some of the art and the science behind it, because we really do see it as an interplay of both of those things. So to kick things off today, we're actually going to start by talking about let me see if I get this right, the NASA Mars Climate Orbiter. Benjamin, do you want to tell us why this failed space mission to Mars has huge relevance to what we're doing here with conversation design and tells us a lot about making sure that both sides are speaking the same language?
Yeah, I think this is a warning message to anyone who thinks about the importance of conversation and conversation design. So the year is 1999, and after a 10-month journey through space and more than $250 million to develop this orbiter between NASA, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Lockheed Martin, a bunch of international contractors, the Mars Climate Orbiter smacked right into the face of the red planet and was destroyed. It was a huge loss for the entire team after probably more than 2 or 3 years of investment. Does anyone know why it crashed into the surface of the planet? Or does anyone have any guesses about why? Yes, it's the metric system, of course, which I'm sure that all of our friends in Canada think, why does the United States use this wacky? And so, this is kind of a perfect lost in translation story. The orbiter was reading data from the planet saying we're this far away in metric, but then it was doing operations with it using the English system. And so this was the reason why it did not know to put on its retro booster jets before it crashed into the planet. Now, this is an extreme example, but I think it goes to show you how if teams are not talking together well, if your customers are not talking well to the thinking machine, if you're not really thinking about the art and science that goes into a conversation, you're not going to be set up for success.
Yeah, and to illustrate that a little bit, what we've put together here is a conversation. We're going to play through it for a few minutes, and then we're going to break it down into a bunch of its component parts. Kind of talk you through why every single turn of that conversation was phrased exactly as it was. What are the things happening behind the scenes that power that? So without further ado, let's have this video play.
Hi, thanks for calling Clearview Vision. I'm a thinking machine on a recorded line. How can I help you today?
Can I talk to an agent?
I would be happy to get you to an agent, but it looks like there will be a 25-minute hold time. In the meantime, how can I help you?
I've been squinting at the computer screen a lot and I've been getting headaches.
Let's schedule you for an eye exam. Are you looking for contact lenses?
I am.
Thanks. And where are you located?
I'm in the Big Apple.
Okay, I have West Village and Flatiron locations available in Manhattan. Which would you prefer?
Let's go with West Village.
West Village it is. When would you like to come in?
Actually, sorry, can we do Flatiron? I just moved.
No problem. We'll schedule you for our Flatiron location. So, when would you like to come in?
Sometime around 10 a.m. usually works well for me.
Sure, 10 a.m. Which day works for you?
How about the day after tomorrow?
Got it. There's an appointment available on Thursday, October 13th at 10:30 a.m. Does that work?
That's great, thanks.
Excellent. I have you all set for Thursday, October 13th at 10:30 a.m. Lastly, I need to confirm your contact info to speed up your check-in at our office. First, is this the best phone number to reach you?
It is, yeah.
Perfect. Now, can I get your email address?
m.riley@gmail.com.
Okay, I got m.riley@gmail.com. Is that correct?
You got it.
Thanks. Would you like me to send you a text with your appointment confirmation?
Sure.
All right, I just sent the text. Feel free to reply if you need anything else. Thanks for calling Clearview Vision. Goodbye.
All right. So there's a lot that happened in that conversation, right? There was an entire scheduling flow. There were some twists and turns along the way. But what we're going to try to do here, and the philosophy that we really believe in, is something as complex as that can actually be made simple by distilling it into a series of the core principles that really drive everything that we just did here. Benjamin, I don't know if you want to talk about just, there's so many capabilities that powered that.
Yeah, you might think, that's felt really simple. Like, why are we even showing you this on stage? And I think if you think about all the ways that it could have gone wrong, all of the ways that it could go off the happy path, all of the traps that people could fall into, it's these capabilities that keep people on the line, keep them engaged, and it's the methodology that we think about when we build the technology behind it. So we're gonna break down each of these as we go, and we'll pause. Now, if there's questions or you wanna know more, just kind of like throw your hand up in the air. But let's go ahead and jump in with answering immediately and avoiding personification of the machine. You know, we know that the number one thing that's gonna piss people off is 25-minute hold time. Who wants to call in? You're already angry and you're going to say, you know, now I got to wait another 25 minutes. And so picking up immediately is one of the big selling points of the thinking machine. We're going to get some pushback sometimes. We'll come to that later in the what's in it for me. But a big point here is that we avoid personification. It's not, hi, I'm Julie, or talking, you know, hi, I'm an agent named Julie. It's, I'm the thinking machine. And we chose that specifically because it's honest. You're being upfront with the customer that this is what you're speaking with. It's not a person, but I'm here and I'm going to help you right away. And it's through this avoiding personification that we sort of invite our customers to think about honesty when it comes to the conversation.
Yeah, and once you've built that trusted relationship with the customer, we like to come back to a principle that we like to call what's in it for me. When you design a turn of conversation, but particularly at the beginning of a call, you need to try to draw the caller in so they'll actually complete the transaction, right? That is where the battle is actually won or lost. And there's different ways in different call contexts to do that and express to the caller what's in it for them. In this particular case, we wanted to illustrate an example of a data dip that could be made into a call center system where we pull a live wait time. We actually had a great conversation at lunch about this, right? It's really applicable use case to most folks here. Is possible with an integration into your contact center platform, and immediately expresses to a caller that this task can be resolved by this machine now, and you'd have to wait quite a bit longer in order to get through to an agent, right? So this is another best practice and principle. It's just worth keeping in the back of our minds as we think about opening the conversation.
Yeah, I think the folks here are in a little bit of a rarefied air because you're experiencing what a good machine conversation can sound like. I think for most people who call into this system, it's really going to be the first time that they've ever spoken to a robot that has this kind of capabilities. And so who can blame them? You know, they've been let down in the past, and so of course they're going to scream for an agent. And so putting this line in here of, you know, making sure we've got that data dip, what's the time, and then pull them back into the conversation with, you know what, I might be able to help you. What's your membership number? What's your name? What are you looking for? And then kind of like bring them back into that conversation. And it's sort of a learn by doing experience that by talking to the machine, you understand that, you know, it can be a lot better for you. Now, it might be a sad letdown as you go talk to your home, Alexa or a Google Home device. I'm constantly running up against walls with this, but at least on the replicant calls, people are going to know the capabilities that they have when you speak with them.
There's also a little bit of interesting psychology here, which is start with the softball question. There's a reason why a lot of the small talk that we make starts with talking about the weather. Everyone's familiar and comfortable with talking about that, complaining about it, right? And this is a softball question, right? Asking for a membership number. Now, assuming that in this particular call context, it's something that's short, not too long of a value, something that caller might have readily available. If that weren't the case, pick something that is a good conversation starter. Almost think of it as what's going to be the easiest thing to kind of get that customer pulled in.
All right, so next piece here is natural language intents and just allowing kind of colloquial speech in general. I'm going to talk at length tomorrow about what are the actual advancements that we've seen in the technology space, really since 2012 and then again in 2017, that allowed for automatic speech recognition that's better than it's ever been. Intent matching that's able to deal with not just yes and no keyword matches, but y'all got it, boss. Like things that people say that, we all understand the meaning behind it, but, how does the machine pick this up? Allowing people to speak in the way that they want to talk, it puts people at ease, and it really lowers the customer effort of, what they're going to have to do to kind of fight through this machine. So it's another way to keep people engaged in the conversation and give them some confidence that they're going to be able to make it through the interaction without pressing 0 or asking for an agent. You'll hear in this particular conversation that the person didn't say, I need an eye exam. They gave you some examples of some symptoms that they'd been experiencing. I'm squinting at this computer screen and I'm getting headaches. The same kind of technology that Divya showed earlier, where we're collaboratively building these intents together, and you came up with some really good answers. I was gifted, my dad gave me a car. It's not, I need to swap out the vehicle on the policy. It's, let's talk a little bit about what happened in my life and why that's going to be related to the intents that the machine is going to be able to match. We also, of course, build this over time. And so as people say more and more of these phrases, the thinking machine is getting better over time. I think now we have well over 100 built-in intents for the yeses and the nos and let me speak to an agent. So when you come on board, you're really just expanding the custom jargon that people are going to say in your industry and for your particular space. Also things like the Big Apple, like knowing that this is New York. I think it's so important, again, to lower the customer effort by just picking up on these little pieces that it's, with a little extra effort, the machine will understand that, just so you can be on the same level as the person.
Yeah, and how much we do with that. You go from the Big Apple to its New York City to what are, a couple locations that we can throw out there, and we throw out West Village and Flatiron, right? So again, just keeping the conversation moving just as a person would is really key. So there's a call to action at every step there. There's also this idea we like to call probabilistic funnels, right? Most of you have some tried and trodden call paths. When people call, they will go down certain parts of the call funnel. Why not build that intelligence into your thinking machine? In this particular case, turns out 70% of callers do call about contact lenses versus other types of eyewear. So why not proactively lead with, are you looking for contact lenses, right? You might be better serving 70% of customers and lowering customer effort there. So let's think about what are the most high probability paths that a customer might traverse, and then build that again as early as possible into the call funnel. That will get people through so much easier.
Yeah, I think a lot about, you've got what works for everyone. Most people are calling in about contact lenses. That's kind of like the base information that we know from your callers. On top of that, we often like to layer, what do we know about this particular caller? Did they call us a year ago and they actually picked glasses? Okay, can we use that as sort of an additional intelligence layer that sits on top? And so you can think of this as kind of like the big brain that's thinking about, what is the thing that everyone does? And then you've got these kind of smaller brains that are thinking about, what did Meghna ask for last time? What did Benjamin ask for last time? And can we use that as a layer on top of the conversation? It's almost building a relationship, using the phrasing that we have in the conversation. Yet again, another reason that people are going to stay on the line. I like to think that when people call in, they've already got like a frustration meter that's almost filled up. Maybe they went to the website, couldn't figure it out. Maybe they tried the chatbot, couldn't quite figure it out. And so when they're calling you on the phone, they're already like, 80% of the way to having a little bit of a meltdown. And so everything that you can do and all of these tactics that are built into most of our conversational powers that can de-escalate the situation and kind of get people back to a feeling of, everything's going to be okay. Sure, I had a conversation with this crazy machine, but it got me what I needed right away.
Yeah, and talk about a frazzled caller, right? Sometimes they change their mind. In this case, the caller in question picks the West Village location, and then it's like, crap, that's actually not, I just moved, I have a new address, I'm actually closer to the other one, right? And so we like to think of this as the back button that we don't have in voice. For most websites, you click on the wrong button, easy. You hit the back button and you start right back where you came from. How do you design this back button mechanism, right? This is what we call conversation repair. It's one of the hardest things to do in conversational AI. I think one of the things you probably noticed interacting with a lot of other conversation AI systems, or even some of the home systems, right? The Alexas and Google Home devices that you might have, is you kind of have to follow a pretty linear path, and it's really hard to retrace your steps. But this is something that we actually like to build into our technology with conversation repair. And so the way that we actually do this is we essentially have a slot filling mechanism. So we're looking for what are the different pieces of information that we need to collect. The location is one. And then when someone says, can we do Flatiron, we know it's a different location and it's an alternative to the one that we just provided. And we know that we need to strike out the previous value and reinsert this new value, right? And so that's a capability that we've developed more recently. I don't know if you have anything to add on as far as the technology there.
Yeah, I was going to say that if we're talking about anti-patterns, here's a way that you can build conversational repair into your flow in a way that is not very good. Hi, thanks for calling. I'm a thinking machine. For billing, press 1. For sales, press 2. To go back, say back. To go forward, say, it's like this is what might be obvious for a technologist, the way that you might build this in, but it actually doesn't lead to very good conversational repair. And so something that we're constantly building over time is discovering all the ways that people say, hey, let me start over, or I want to switch from my billing flow into my claims flow. And we're getting better and better at this. We're building new conversational mechanisms to allow for switching between different flows while still keeping all of the context of what you said before. In the same way that when the call escalates, you want to be able to pass that data to the agent, so I'm not repeating myself. Even when you switch between different flows, if I was in the billing flow and now I'm in the claims flow, you're still talking to me. So, let's keep as much information as we can and sort of flow that over into the new conversational line that we're in. And it again just becomes a better experience that's going to reduce that frustration meter for the caller.
Now, there's a lot going on when we ask for that date and time, right? So this is the core piece of the scheduling experience. And we've seen from experience, there are so many different ways that people throw dates and times when they're trying to find something that works best for them. In this case, the caller says, sometime around 10 a.m. works for me. But they didn't actually say a date initially, right? And the thinking machine here knew that the date needed to be prompted for, but we already had a time locked and loaded. And again, this goes back to that slot filling capability. We know these are the structured data fields that we need to collect. We got these two, but not these three, so let's prompt for those. And this is something that, the more modern dialogue system that we're building here actually makes a breeze. It's something that's really hard to do in an older model, which is what we talked about a little bit this morning, but as we're moving to this new infrastructure and this new way of building conversations, this type of slot filling is actually really trivial. There's another part of this, which is the day after tomorrow, right? People aren't always going to say Tuesday the 22nd, and so we need to be able to resolve all sorts of different phrasings of dates and times, right?
2 Tuesdays from now, sometime next week, I don't know, last month. There's so many ways that people phrase themselves, and it's not that hard to teach these to the machine, but I think it requires the really presence of mind of the designers who are building these things to know that people are not going to tell you it was I guess you've all got these dates burned into your mind. It was March 30th of 2020 or whatever.
Yeah.
I think also while we stay on this one, the concept of powers and really the capabilities that go into them, a lot of these best practices are built into the power. So you don't really have to remember all of these capabilities. A lot of them come out of the box, and I think that's really key as well. When we first started building the system, the building blocks that we gave you to play with were say this, listen, think about something, send a flex form. It's good, and especially for developers, that's the level that they wanted to be programming in. What you saw earlier from what Meghna showed with the Builder tab was we can use bigger and better and more robust building blocks. So we can say, collect a VIN number. and have all of the intelligence inside of the way that we might want to get VIN, that we want to fall back to using a flex form, that we've got a particular speech recognition system that knows about VIN numbers and how those work. And so by building more and more of this into those reusable powers, it becomes a little bit of a no-brainer for the designers, and you don't have to spend so much time sort of fine-tuning all of these pieces. This is part of the technological space that I think is moving the fastest. That's really what excites me. You know, the difference between the state of the art for this in 2012 versus 2017, even versus like earlier in the year, it's the fastest that some of this technology has moved for a while. And Mike and I were talking when we had first met in the hotel, and he said something that was really striking to me, that the excitement in this space and the speed with which it moves is something that you haven't felt since the advent of the internet, or maybe the shift to cloud technologies. And so as a technologist, I get quite excited. We'll talk a little bit later about what some of those limitations are. But with the use of powers, you can feel confident that you're getting the best of breed, you're getting the best of the best in the powers that you use without having to remember to go back and add some of these capabilities.
Powers do another thing here because they're battle tested and they're really robust, and they've considered all of the different phrasings that a customer might throw at it. It's something that reduces customer effort, which is really critical, right? And another way that we do this is, let's think about context that we have on the user, right? When we ask, is this the best phone number to reach you? The goal there is, let's not make the person read off that phone number. They called us from a phone number. 80% of customers want us to reach them on that very phone number. Let's just give them the opportunity to do that. So what are all of the ways we can leverage the data we've already gathered on them, or data that we've gathered through other data dips, that we don't need to make that person read out again and again?
And there's so many places they might give you that information. It could be a data dip on the beginning of the call. It could be that we asked the person for it. It could be that we made a third-party API call while it was going on and we got that info. Being able to treat all of that seamlessly and understand when is the right time to go and dip into certain databases. Maybe it's just in time, like when the person said, I want to speak to an agent. Maybe it happens before we even pick up the call, which is another reason why we can be sort of fast on the phone. This is something that Gotti talks about all the time. Reduce customer effort. Again, they've got this frustration meter. Please don't push them into the red. Let's make this easier and easier for the callers.
And natural language understanding, the NLU models, play a really key role in reducing customer effort, right? That's what drives up the accuracy of the model and the response that we're able to give. And ultimately, giving a great response is absolutely driven by the quality of all of the underlying machine learning and NLU. And I want to spend a moment talking about email address collection, because when I talked this morning in the keynote about the very first customer that we worked with, the mobile phone company in Canada for whom we had to kind of intercept these callers, we also had to handle email address collection. And I kind of chuckle a little that at the time, we didn't even realize how hard this was going to be. It was kind of the first customer we worked with, and I was like, oh yeah, we'll have to collect lots of data on customers. This is just one more thing. Turned out this was a minefield. Just there's no provider out there, no transcription provider that can actually capture email addresses really well. We've built our stack to be able to leverage lots of different transcription providers under the hood and actually figured out, who's the best provider for a different type of data. So for example, Google, as you can imagine, does really well when it comes to collecting physical addresses. They have this robust Google Maps library of every single address in the world, and so you should rely on them for that. But no one's really good at being able to parse different letters of the alphabet and how those might come together with common email domains, right? And so this is actually something that we thought, well, what if we could train a model in-house to be able to do this? And so kind of embarked on that journey a couple years ago. But it's one of the most exciting things we've been able to do is actually solve this email address collection problem, and it's one of our core powers now. And we're able to do some really sophisticated things, right? If you were to throw M as in Mary, S as in Sam, things like that, knowing that the letters V and B are commonly confused with one another, and those are the most likely letters that people might actually spell out. Building all of this understanding into the email address collector makes this a really powerful experience.
Yeah, I think there are some other interesting models that we've built over the years. One that was close to my heart is phonetic name matching. So my last name is Gleitzman, which no one can pronounce if they're cold calling me on the phone. I get Gleitzman and Glutzman and all of these very strange constructions. But When I speak with other machines, they'll say, and can I get your name for the order? And it's not replicant, somebody else, it'll say, I say, oh, it's Gleitzman. And I get a long pause, and then I get that clickety-clack typing noise to show that it's, and then it says, it doesn't appear that you're talking to me. And it makes me feel sad, you know? It's like, I told you my name, and you're really like shutting me down right now and saying that, you know, what I've said is not valid in that corpus. And so we built early on phonetic name matching. This was really useful for especially Hawaiian names, where I've got a name in front of me that the machine has access to, but when you tell me what your name is, I convert that into the phonemes that, you know, make it up, the kind of sh's and g's and ch's in the names, and we don't do the matching in the spelled English space, we do the matching in the phonetic space. And it's just another way that we make people feel a little bit better when they speak to us over the phone and allow them to kind of speak in their own words. I don't know if you have other models that are kind of favorites of yours through the...
Well, I think names are a great example.
Alphanumeric
yeah,
is maybe one
it's very similar to this one where, you know, with insurance companies, right? You'll have to read out a policy number, a VIN number, and that's often alphanumeric. And so it's just a lot more complicated than just getting a stream of letters or a stream of numbers. Having a model get both, where they're interchangeable, is actually a really hard problem. But we've been able to actually leverage a lot of the technology we built for email address collection in that domain as well.
Yeah, address collection is another, and this fits into Powers as well, where in the early days of address collection, it was, where are you? What is your address? And people would read it off to us. We'd look it up on Google Maps, make sure it's valid, you know, there you go. Then we started doing emergency roadside service use cases, and we'd say, where are you located? And the person says, I don't know. I don't even know what state I'm in, you know? Like, I'm here on the side of the road, it's midnight, I have no idea. So let's text you a link, we'll use that GPS, open it up on your phone. Then we started working with Loves, and you know, truck drivers, they want to give us the lat long of where they're located because it's there on their CB radio. And so we built that into the Power. Then we started working with food delivery companies. Where are you located? I'm in the Hilton. Okay, which Hilton? What city? And sort of drilling that down. All of that gets built into the model behind the power of address collection. And now, when you drop that very large conversational component, you know, in, it doesn't matter whether you spell the address out, or you want to do lat long, or you want to get the GPS location, it's all built in. And so the more and more calls that this thing takes, the more ways that we understand that people want to give us that info, the better that it gets over time.
Yeah. And you know, once we've built all this complexity into the voice experience, the next natural question is, well, y'all are now omni-channel, and so how do we make sure that that great experience funnels through to all of the different SMS or web chat or other interactions that you might want to have?
Yeah, I think we've mentioned that you want to service people on the channel that they call in on. If they're calling you on voice, like, don't push them off to the website. It's not a very good conversational experience. If they, in the middle of the night, send you a text, maybe don't try to push them to the phone. I mean, you know, they're in their bed, they're next to their loved one, they're texting you for a reason. And so being able to understand what's the channel, what's the best way to collect this information, give people fallbacks. You know, if we need to collect a piece of information, we need to be able to do it in voice and over SMS. Some people are going to choose SMS because maybe that's simpler for them. A credit card payment, they're just going to use their thumbprint on Apple Pay, and that's a really good way to, you know, send the credit card info. Some of our older folks who are calling into some of our thinking machines, they've only got a flip phone. My dad still has a flip phone. He's not going to be making a payment using his thumbprint on the phone. My mom doesn't even have a cell phone, and so this is, you know, I grew up in West Virginia, so this is like this is the state of their technology where we live. They still have DSL, dial-up internet. So, you know, it's things like this and really understanding the experience of the caller. Not everyone is going to have the speed of internet that you have, or the newest phone that you have, or really access to a reliable channel for them. I know a lot of people who are checking their SMSs at the library because they're using the computer. You know, allow those folks to do it through the channel that they choose on, rather than imposing some kind of a best way that you think it should be done. Be able to do everything in this omni-channel experience. But before we go on, I'll pause and see if there's any questions about, you know, sort of these concepts that we've talked about, if anyone's got a burning one on their mind. All right, if not, we can go into omni-channel.
All right. So, you know, a lot of what we've talked about, it's very detail oriented, right? And it's really us sweating the details. And part of this is we do recognize that while a lot of the technology we're adopting is state of the art, this is a marriage of art and science. There's only so much you can do with technology, and at some point the art kicks in. The specific techniques and principles and methods and the understanding of the caller and deeply knowing the context and really meeting them where they are is what takes that experience to the next level. And this is the case with omnichannel just as much as it is with a pure voice experience. The challenges that we often ran into with pure voice were more things like mistranscriptions that would occur because, callers in a noisy environment or speaking with an accent, and often having to get all of the words in the audio stream right was one of the hardest challenges. As we've switched to other channels, those challenges are a little different. This is another conversation we were having at lunch, but some of the questions we got were, how are you handling emojis? How are you handling K, BRB? All of these types of shorthand that you're very likely to see over text. And so this is actually a key thing that we've built into our machine learning models that are just for the SMS channel and for the chat channel, right? So our web chat can actually handle emojis. And so just recognizing there's different ways that even the same person might communicate on different channels is really critical, right? And think about flex forms. It's actually some really exciting potential here to build in things like maps, file uploads, right? Can you give people a visual aid that accompanies a voice conversation to provide an even better experience? Our geolocation flex form is in production today, right? So we want to find out exactly where a customer is, very relevant for roadside, obviously, and a few other use cases. We also recently launched a file upload flex form. This is something where if you want a user in the stream of a voice conversation to snap a picture of something, let's say, we work with a lot of food delivery companies. Let's say you get a food order and all of the food is spilled out of the bag and you call to complain. Snap a picture of it and send that to the agent, get the full refund that you deserve, right? So many use cases for being able to quickly get a picture of something and where a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so thinking about the different, the interplay of different channels and how you can really create a great experience, not just by looking at what channel a user has chosen to communicate with you on, how the user wants to communicate on that channel, but how can we bring different channels together because there may be different use cases just within a given conversation. Yeah. And it's, yeah.
I was going to add a surprising learning that we found as we were embarking on this journey is that when we taught the thinking machine multiple languages, so now it speaks 30 instead of speaking, just English, training the intent data sets in those additional languages increased the accuracy by 5 to 10%. And I said, wow, that's wild. When you teach the machine, the French and German and Japanese and English versions of how to say these words, the usage just in English gets that much better. And it also applies to the languages of emojis and these kind of, shorthand phrases that we use. So it's giving the machine a just better understanding of what is the true intent behind this language. That was, I think, the regular Joe inside of me was like, oh, that's surprising, and then the technologist was like, yeah, it's more data. It's it's obviously it's going to get better. So I'm excited to see what happens when we continue to add more ways of interaction and more languages to the thinking machine.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about how certain conversation design principles translate, right? The one breath rule, a little less relevant when you're not saying something out loud, but in an SMS context, it's almost like a single message rule, right? That's not the term we're going to use for it, but make that message brief because there's a character limit after which, an SMS is going to get too long and it's going to get broken up into multiple SMSs. That's not a great experience. Link shortening is another key thing, and we have ways of doing that right in the product as well. So making sure that brevity is kind of top of mind for every channel in ways that are very relevant to the channel at hand are also really critical.
Knowing when someone is done is a complex issue. You ever get those Slack messages that are like, hey, and you're like, all right, next, I wait an hour and it's still on hey. With an SMS conversation, you have kind of the same problems, it's like they're going to keep sending you things. And so knowing when to kind of like end that particular phrase, it's a little easier over voice because we have these natural pauses in what we say. It's just another, capability that we had to take into account as we build omnichannel.
Now, one of the things we wanted to close with here is the replicant design guide. So we've thrown so much information at you today about the new toolkit in Builder that includes script editing and intent model training and A/B testing and all of this good stuff. Actually had a really good conversation with Mike earlier about, how do we actually get folks trained up on this? Because I think one of my most amazing learnings from the different conversations we've had today is you all are actually promoting team members that used to be customer service agents into roles where they're monitoring, managing, administering the replicant platform, which, that's just really cool and mind-blowing for me to think about, but also feel like we really need to equip those folks with the right tools to set them up for success here. And part of that is obviously product training, right? How do you, what are the different click paths that you can follow to do the advanced analytics and the script editing and how to use the builder, but also, can we actually start training some of these folks on your team on these best practices, right? So when you're using Builder and trying to modify a script, that you can have some of these principles at the back of your mind. And so just wanted to talk about the fact that we'll be rolling out these best practices in a design guide. I'm going to try to distill it into bite-sized chunks so it's easy to digest, package it up with the rest of the product enablement that we have planned. But that's a really key thing that we want to make sure we put in your hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as much as the technology, which I'll stand by, and I think that team is fantastic that's building it, it's the conversation design that's going to be a major factor in allowing all of us to succeed in this space. We are not yet to the point where you can throw a bunch of conversations into a magic cauldron and out comes, the talking robot. And I'll speak tomorrow about sort of why, we're a bit of a ways away from that. So in the meantime, it's going to be this collaboration of human and machine. It's going to be a collaboration of, it's a little bit of science, it's a little bit of art. And by using all of these together, it's going to create a hopefully fantastic experience for your callers and something that's not going to push them over that frustration meter so that they need to escalate to an agent.
All right, with that, I think we're going to wrap up this session for today.
Thank you.